This is just for the recording. The first, the people who are just now, I guess, joining and watching the video, we're talking about a unit that allows you to buy less equipment to run labs because you only have to run 3 labs at a time versus running 12 labs for your entire class. Okay, so I guess I kind of want to stop there just for a moment. Questions or thoughts or comments or whatever based off of what I just talked about with that lab or that unit.
Bill, how many did you go into teaching with this model that you were using, or did it take, like, I've never seen this model as a student. And so sometimes I think, like, we've all been students, and sometimes if we want to do kind of outside the box thinking, or in this case, you're talking about fewer setups, but then more activities to kind of cut down on the cost of labs, but then also to save a little money to buy some nicer things because you don't need as many setups. Was this modeled for you? Did you come in knowing this? Did it take a couple of years to develop this technique?
That's a great question. So I had taught 7 years before we started doing this. And during those 7 years, I did everyone do the lab at the same time. And I'm going to lecture the entire hour, and then we're going to give homework. And I mean, I kind of went around the gamut. It was when I changed schools and started teaching next to this new teacher. Her dad was a high school chemistry teacher, and this is kind of how he did it. And so she explained this concept, and I was like, interesting. I'll be honest, at first I was kind of like, it's going to take me out of my comfort zone a little bit.
Definitely.
But I can just tell you, there were many benefits. One, the benefit that we're talking about today is, buying less equipment. I got to know the kids. I remembered the first time that we had parent-teacher conferences after doing this, and I did not have to print off anything for the kids because I knew every kid and what they were doing, which blew my mind. Because if you guys don't know me, Sarah knows me pretty well. I forget people's names. Like, I mean, I'll meet you one time and be like, I can't remember your name. But this got me so focused on what the kids were doing and where they were. The other thing that it helped with, and I didn't mention this, I didn't pass out any papers. So I had a file cabinet with all the files of the worksheets or whatever they were going to do, and the kids would walk up and pull them out. I know now with computers, you guys probably don't do that. You just have, but I mean, I could do the same thing with the computer now. I could put all those things in there for the kids already. They would pull it up when they're ready to go. And I don't have to worry about trying to manage all that.
To have the comments, it sounds similar to setting up stations.
It is kind of like setting up stations. Yeah, it was. And it was kind of interesting because the kids would almost kind of, I'm pointing to places in the room I'm sitting in. They would go over to one side clearly to do the lab because there were lab benches and stuff. But the kids would gravitate towards the back corner if they were doing, I'll say bookwork or worksheets or stuff like that. And then sometimes there was just a setup like the one that I had on here was, compare and contrast objects and explain. I just had a tray full of objects, and they would have to talk about, do they think it will sink or do they think it will float based off of, without doing anything with it. And so then kids would have to explain. And so that would be a place that they would gravitate towards when they were going to do that. They could move stuff wherever. I didn't care where they moved it in the classroom other than the lab stuff. I just wanted to keep it on the lab bench. The other thing that was great was when kids were sick. I mean, they come back and they know what they have to do. They got so much time. And I never assigned homework. You got to be done by this date. And we're going to take the test. And I'd have kids that would only get through like mini topics 1 and 2 and maybe start on 3, and it was test day. And they're looking at me and I'm like, we're going. I had other teachers who taught science in other places go, well, don't you feel like you're slighting those kids because they're not doing? I'm going, well, those kids probably would have done the work anyway. If I would have done that everybody at the same time, they would have done less anyway. At least with this, whatever they did do, they did it pretty well because they had to pass those mini quizzes to get on to the next part. So I kind of knew where they were. And then everyone's a different person, right? Everybody can teach the way they teach. I'm not telling you how to teach. I'm just giving you some knowledge. But then I would also, let's say back to Sarah and I being partners. And let's say I'm slacking. I'm not doing my job and Sarah's getting frustrated because she wants to move a little faster. I would move kids around. I'd be like, hey, building's a new partner, someone who can motivate them. And I would have no problem doing that. And you know what? And at the end of the day, I want them to do well. So you just kind of, and I'd have kids, I would even go sometimes like, I'll give someone extra credit if they can get Bill through this next unit on time. And I mean, I'd say, it sounds really, I don't mind saying it. It was always the really shy girl in the corner who would go, I'll do it. And I mean, sure enough, boom, that person was through. And it didn't matter if it was a girl or a boy that was not going fast. They would, next thing you know, because that peer pressure, right? I mean, that of trying to get stuff done. Did that kind of answer what you?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I appreciate you saying that it was like, you had taught 7 years, can I say more traditional with the lecture and everyone doing the lab. And I don't know, these days, how much time that takes to kind of get comfortable or do something like this. I know when I first came out and started teaching, I'm not sure that I could have jumped to that right away, not having a co-teacher or someone kind of helping me through that. So it took a few years to kind of learn that you can change things around a little bit. But I love the idea of fewer setups and kind of managing that science supply budget in a different way.
And I mean, and I'll give you one example of just, this didn't cost much money, but when I knew I had to, we did a flame test lab. And so I could be in the area the whole time. And I would tell kids, I'm over here, you can't come over here, blah, blah, blah. And I would stay in that area and those other kids would just kind of move. The other benefit was after the kids figured it out, it always took like units, probably 1, 2, and 3. And then eventually the kids were like, okay, we know how to do this now.
Yeah.
So it took a little bit of that. But then when I had subs after that, my sub plan was literally tell them to start and let them go. And now I would tell the kids before I'd leave, like, okay, if you're on mini topic 2, you really can't do the lab, if depending on what the lab was. Does that make sense? But a lot of times I could modify the lab like that if I knew I was going to be gone to something that was not dangerous or, needed anybody to really watch them. So we all have labs that we can switch out for something to go, okay, just do this. Wasn't great, but I mean, it would work.
It seems like a part of this is kind of a solid sense of classroom management if it's going to work this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just kind of know, like you said, knowing your kids and then knowing how each class handles this setup differently because they're not all going to come in every hour is different. So,
but I taught inclusion.
Okay.
And I tell you what, now I did have an 8 in there, but I tell you what, these kids thrived on it because they knew what they had to do. And a lot of times I put little check boxes next to each one so that as they went through, they could check off what they've done. So they knew. But I mean, they flourished in this type of environment.
Cool.
Yeah. So before we started, Sarah and I were talking about, and one thing that happened during this time was book adoption. And when book adoption came up, I said to the other science teacher, I go, we have books and standards weren't, this is the difference. Yeah. I'm being real honest. Standards weren't really a thing. They were starting to show up during that time, but we had course syllabuses and we had unit guides and all that stuff that we had to put together, and we had that type of stuff. But we didn't need books. I mean, we had books. They were older, but all we did was we begged we begged the principal to not buy us books and let us use, and it was $11,000 that they were going to spend on new books. And we said, hey, is there any way we can spend this money on stuff for our classroom versus books? And so we had to go present in front of the school board as to why we didn't need books. And we literally brought books with us. We showed them that we could duct tape the tops or to the, if they had bad covers, or we could just duct tape the spines. A lot of the times we told the kids, take the book home and leave it at home. That's where your reference is going to be. We had books in the classroom that if they needed to go grab a book for something, they could, but every kid had a book to take home. And then we usually had at least 10 or 12 books in the classroom. So if you needed to go and like look something up based off of what we were doing, you could. But then they had a book. And Sarah and I were talking about that. Like if a parent goes, well, I don't know how to do this valence electron thing. Well, it's in the book. Here it is, chapter whatever, and go ahead and look and see. And the information's in there. You guys with using, computers now, and I'm watching, my kids, I still have one in middle school and now one in high school, and then all the rest of my kids are out. You have one in high school.
Yeah, one in high school and one in middle school.
One in middle school. I don't ever see books.
Yeah.
I don't see books.
It's changed.
So I'm sure that there's a lot of money being spent on software through the book companies. I understand all that. But if you get to the point where you're like, man, I just don't need that, or I need, if there's a way for you to come up with a good plan, and this is something that I learned, don't ask for, like back when computers were starting to become a big thing, we had teachers that would always go, I want 6 computers for my classroom to put in my classroom. Well, why? That's the whole, why do you need 6 computers? And so instead of saying I want 6 computers, I want to be able to run a classroom that does this, and having these computers would allow me to do this. So if you're going to think about trying to do something like that, I guarantee, at least with us, they would not let us buy we weren't going to buy beakers and all kinds of glassware or lab supply stuff with that money, because it had to be something that was like a book. So, but maybe there's things that you can buy instead of getting the, and use that money towards at least something that allows the kids to do something that is lab related, that is not a book or a computer program. So just we're thinking out loud as we're kind of doing this a bit. Is there a way for you to get money from book adoption stuff that is not for books?
I don't know how it's changed. I feel like so many schools have gone 1-to-1 now
Right.
with any kind of device. I don't know
How
before, when we had that book adoption money, it was, but I think,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that's.
And I don't know, and this is where, I'm going to stop sharing for a second.
Amy mentioned using Kessler lab stations, and the student that has really good student back.
Yeah, right. The students loved them. Yeah. I think if I was back in the classroom and I really wanted to have nicer labs, less of them, I think I would be having conversations with the administration as to how can I find some money for that, money that you're spending on something else that's currently being used in my classroom that maybe I don't use as much. That's kind of where I would be. But once again, you guys, every school district and every school is different in how they do that. I understand. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but that's where I would be, because Sarah and I were talking about this. Like, I hate to say it, I can teach a middle school science class. I don't need a book. But the kids might need that reference, and I want them to have a reference, and the parents might need the reference. So I want them to have it, but maybe I don't need all the bells and whistles that I would normally need. Okay. I'm not going to beat that anymore. Okay, before I go on to the next part of this, are there any comments or thoughts that you have about, I'll say, freeing up money that allows you to purchase things already, using money that you're freeing up with? Hope that made sense. And just for your knowledge, I'm going to get to talking about grant writing towards the end, and I have some resources for you for that. All right. If you do, pipe up and we'll go through and talk about it. All right, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen and we'll go on. So I don't want to seem like a commercial, but I also know that we have produced a tremendous amount of stuff, and we are going to continue to produce a tremendous amount of stuff for you to use that is free. Okay. Our whole goal is what can we do to bring you free stuff, just like we're bringing you a free professional development. And we sent out a ton of equipment to the majority of the teachers who joined us for these sessions. Received some equipment, some supplies. Some of you received quite a bit, and have sent me nice emails, which is nice. But I kind of want to go through what we offer, and this is just some. These are the things that I'm kind of like, here's some free things that you can definitely put into your classroom that will help you quite a bit. So these aren't in any order, okay? They're not like a hierarchy. I pulled these off of our website, but I'm going to go down through. And the cool thing is they're all right here on this page for you, and it links you back into ours. So the first one is this online virtual labs. And I'm going to talk a little bit, and then I know Sarah will want to jump in, I hope. These have been fun to make. They are, in my mind, very well, I use the word teased out into a very good unit, a very good set of, I like the way learning experiences, according to the top of our webpage on this. So let me just go through. I'm going to go through one, and we'll just kind of talk about it. So if you do anything with radiation or anything with half-life or anything around that type of concept, here is a bunch of different lessons, activities that go through this. And I'm not going to go through and like explain every part, because that you can go back and watch some of our other videos and go through and do this. But in here, there's a whole introduction to radioactivity, and it tells you, lesson overview, the timing, the learning objectives. Sarah does a great thing where you can request an answer key, but you have to do it. It can't be a student, and we make sure that doesn't happen. And then there are connections to content standards, cross-cutting concepts, science and engineering practices as well. So that's the first, and then we go into an actual lecture that has a link to the presentation, guided lecture notes, all this. The cool thing about this is it has all the slides and everything for you to do with the kids, but then if you don't have one of what we have, these nuclear scalars, if you don't have it, you don't have to have it. You can literally have the kids there's the student handout for it. You can have the kids go in, click on background radiation one, bring up this video. And so this thing is counting the background radiation inside the room that it's in. And why do we do this? Because we want to subtract this out from all of our other activities that we're going to do with this later. So the kids actually are watching this. I know it's not, but I mean, imagine back to the stations. This could be a station where kids are going through and doing this, and there it is. And so they have to do this. There's 3 times because we got to get an average. So that stopped that one. Go back. And so then they would do the same thing, count 2, count 3, and then back to their handout. Then they're going to be adding those up and dividing by 3. Now you come down here, and now this whole next part is how distance affects exposure to radiation. So the further the radiation source goes away, or away from the counter, the Geiger counter, you're going to watch what happens. And so these shelves are a distance. Second one is close, then third one is further away, fourth further away, and all the way down. So then they would click on this, and they're going to watch those same thing, and they're going to see the count being made with a beta source being used. And then they do the same thing with alpha and same thing with gamma. So they're going to see what happens to the distance with each one of these sources over time. It's not the ideal. The ideal would be to have the piece of equipment in your classroom and be able to do it. But I mean, those are almost $1,000 a piece. So if you had $3,000 and you were doing the stations, you could do 3, and you could do that. But if you don't, and don't want to spend the money on that much money for one lab, I mean, here's a lab that's already done, and it's very well done. Not only that lab, the distance, but then we do another one on how shielding affects it. And so now we have shields that they put in at different, shields they put in between each of the different sources. And the shields become like, it goes from notebook paper to thin plastic to thicker plastic to aluminum, and then lead, and then thick lead. Yes, it's kids watching a screen again. I want to say we're not stupid. We understand, but it's the next best thing, as opposed to them not doing the lab. Or, I mean, you could still do, do a penny one or do something along the other lines, but this is kind of cool because they're actually using a piece of equipment that is meant to do this. Mm-hmm. Now, Sarah, I'm trying to remember, do we have that other one with the one you did with the trays? Is that?
Yeah, I don't think, I think we just have the.
Was it back on that main page?
Yeah, it's on the action page.
It's not further down on this.
Oh, it's on the virtual lab page. It's a separate.
Oh, it's a separate one. Uh-huh. So go back. Which one is it? Do you remember?
It would be.
What is half-life?
Fourth one down. Yeah. What is half-life?
Okay. So there's another way to do, and you don't need to have that machine. I mean, here's some simple supplies. This is kind of why I wanted to look at this one. You got a ruler, you got some pencils, you got some pennies, tape. And I mean, this is a great way to do half-life without having a piece of machinery that actually runs and shows you half-life. And this is simple. Yeah. I mean, probably the most expensive thing there is the pennies.
Yeah, right.
Because how many pennies do you need?
You need 100.
You need 100. So that's $1.
Yeah.
So
I'll say for all the virtual labs, I mean, we're showing an example of one, but our goal for each of these is that students are able to pull some data from any of these that we do. And a lot of them, like Bill is showing, we have the video that they can watch to then get that data from, that then they can analyze, work with that data that they're collecting, just like they would if they had the actual setup in the classroom. So it's a nice alternative to being able to collect some real actual data, not fabricated, not like perfect data that's going to always work out. We're going to have some real data that they can then use and manipulate.
So I'm just going to scroll down this. I mean, there's classifying matter virtual lab. There's a groundwater contamination, which has been very popular, both of those. There's introduction to air pollution, changes in states of matter, photosynthesis, investigation to earth systems, remote sensing, microbes to medicines, determining the availability of iron in fresh water sample, separation. I mean, I'm just going to keep, you guys can read all the way down the rest of them. But I guess here's the other thing. Since you guys are here, if you have a lab, a virtual lab that you wish we had, and you have an idea for one, throw it at us. I'm not saying we're going to jump on it right away, but it definitely gives us firepower to look at, okay, here's a concept that you have, or even a topic around you wish, oh, I wish you guys had something around this topic. That gives us some firepower to put this together. And I'm going to tell you right now, I can't tell you the number of hours put into making one of these. It's a lot. And so let us do it, and then you use it versus you trying to spend time doing it. We can,
I know we have a buffer lab that it's taken a while, but we're getting closer to being able to roll that out. So this coming semester, hopefully towards the beginning, we're going to be able to add that one on too. But I'm excited. There's a lot of setup that goes into that one. So.
But going back to the topic of this entire talk, it's, running your classroom on a shoestring budget. This is free.
Yeah.
There's nothing to this, or nothing for you for this. Okay. Here's another one that, you can buy the equipment to do demos. And I don't know, Sarah, I'm asking, did you do a lot of demos when you were teaching? Did you?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
I do demos, and then I like the students to be able to do it too, but some things it's just not possible.
Yeah. I felt like I did a lot of, like I had a device that shoots the steel ball and then drops one at the same time, so you could look at, the effect of gravity.
Oh, yeah.
That type of thing. I had one setup, so I wasn't gonna let the kids have it. And
Yeah.
not only that, but they're shooting a steel ball, which would shoot pretty far.
Right.
But if I had videos, I think at this point, I think I would have just shown the video, because then I could do it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Maybe have it to do once where I actually do it. But I mean, here's the cool thing about this science demonstrations. And I know some of you have been in our previous sessions, and I know we've talked about these, but let's dive into this a little bit more. The cool thing is, with this off that page, I can put a subject in. So if I want to say, I want everything that deals with physics. When I did that, it didn't look like it did anything, but it did. Anywhere that we put the word physics in under the subject, it kept those videos. So every one of these videos now deals with physics. So let's say instead of the subject, I want a keyword. And let's say, let's say light. Okay, so there's light. And that just it just brought them all up, the ones with light. So you as the teacher can have that possibility to go in and look at these. Now, Sarah, you help me with this. And you look at this first one and you see, can sound travel in a vacuum? Can sound travel in a vacuum? Well, it looks here like we're going, well, why are these both the same? In here, this is the full demo. And remind me, the full demo is like a demonstration with explanation.
No. I think there is.
Let me scroll down and see.
Yeah. So the full demo would be start to finish.
There's the
If
teacher
you were
edition.
watching the demo happen in the classroom, we have the full demo. We have a short demo, which is 59 seconds or less, of probably the most dynamic part of what that demo is showing. So if that's kind of more, I think a lot of students are there, that reel format, the YouTube short format. That's the vertical format. That's, again, just that really dynamic part of that. The teacher edition has either a lab prep person or another professional that's explaining the science behind that. So if it was a demo that you wanted to set up and do yourself, but you needed a little refresher on, okay, what is this actually? I want to make sure I say it correctly. That teacher edition is going to have that basically the science concept that's being demonstrated through that.
And I scrolled down to where here's the refraction of light through water. Here's 3 of them. There's a demo. There's a short demo. There's a teacher edition. So it may be where you just want to go in there and refresh your mind as the teacher, or you want to just have a short demo because you want the kids to then explain what they think happened, or you could have a full demo where it's a little bit more and you could still use that however you want. But I got very excited when Sarah and Steven started putting demos together. But then when we were able to get this set up where you could search it, that's
huge.
that's a game changer in this, because before you literally had to scroll.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's great, but I don't have time for that. So this is awesome. And you could actually even go in under description. So if I put, I don't know, I haven't done this. If you have put in full, does that bring? Looks like it says anything that's full or short.
Or demo.
Okay. Well, it still kept that second one, maybe because it has the word full in there. Oh, it does right there. Find the full classifying matter virtual lab. So, okay. Let me go back. So that's the demos, and you can search through there and look at those all you want. The next one is the science from the experts. And this, I clicked on this, and this brings up the YouTube channel, Superheroes of Science, but it brings you into the list of just the ones where they interview science experts in their fields. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. These are long at times. You can see the timing on this, 48 minutes, 33 minutes, all the way down. But it is them interviewing these professors. Now, you could use these as a, hey, you're going to watch this and write me a whatever on it or that. But it's interviews of all these people with all different kinds of concepts. And you can look, and now this isn't searchable, but you can see the topics pretty easy and start to find out the ones you think might be interested in looking at. You can also see that, they are in order of the number of views. So these ones at the top have more views than the ones towards the bottom, but that doesn't mean that they're not good on the bottom. It just means that someone saw that and it became kind of a hot topic. But here's all these interviews that Sarah and Steve did on, and they're phenomenal. They are really good. Okay, I'm going to come back to I'm going to come back to the lockbox lessons and resources. Sarah stepped out for a minute. I'll come back to that. The Purdue University Kids STEM degree. This is awesome, and we're going to have more of these coming in after the summer's over, because we have professors and research groups that are developing more of these right now. But this is 10 videos. They're 3 to 5 minutes long. The kids watch the video. They take a quiz. They have to do well on the quiz. It's 3 to 5 questions. It's not long. When they do well on the quiz, they get a code. After they get 10 codes in a degree, and down here are the degrees. So you got primary level 1, 2, intermediate, and then you see middle school. And this middle school is going to have a bunch more. So we need you to make sure you come back. After the kids do this and they have 10 codes, they enter the codes in, and there is a sheet. Let me go into one. There's the middle school page. You see the videos. Underneath each video is the test, the quiz. When they're done, they click here to get their certification. That takes them into this Google form. They put in their email. They put in their name as they would like it. They can put their teacher's name in there, or if they want to be their own teacher, and the today's date. And then when they hit next, then they're going to enter in their 10 codes. And then they are able to print off a Purdue University STEM degree on that topic. And so once again, that is free for you to use, and there'll be more of those coming as we go. And I'm telling you that that's been up and running for about 2 years. We've had over 5,800 people complete a series. So that's 5,800 people completing 10 videos and printing off a degree. So it's been fun to watch, and it's going to continue to get bigger and bigger as we go. We've actually had teachers asking us for specific content as well. So that's another one. Okay. STEM Career Repository. We're trying to help you with that college and career readiness and for kids to understand what's out there. So we have people making these STEM careers videos, and they are short videos, 2 to 3 minutes long, and people talking about, hi, my name is Bill Bailey. I have a degree in X, and I have a job that does this, and this is what my job does. And that way kids can kind of see this in real life. And if you click on the keyword search, just like before we did the other one, if you put in a topic or a searchable word, and they gotta kind of mess with it. I mean, if I do chemistry, there's chemistry people. If I put in, I'll go back to light, there's some people that talked about light. If I, and I could keep going. And so the whole idea is we want to get this as big as possible. We're over 100 videos now. Our goal by the end of next year is to be to 500. I will tell you, you can help us. If you know someone who would be willing to make one of these videos, if you would send them to here, okay, Calling STEM Professionals. And then the very first one, the frequent asked questions, how do I record a video to be included? And all they do is go to the STEM career portal. They're going to select your webcam. So the cool thing is down at the bottom, it'll look and find their cameras. So there's camera 2. I'm going to allow it. It's going to bring that up. Oh, you know why? It's not going to bring it up because I'm using that camera right now. But it would bring up my camera on my computer. I'd put my first and last name, and then I'd make my video. And they don't have to be perfect. We have people that edit the videos, but then they can just explain, and it tells them what they want you to do. We want your insight into what you do. Tell them your name, job title, and what you do in your job. That's it. So I want you to imagine giving these to kids, like, oh, you really like this, or you know what, you need to go in and find 5 jobs that are interesting to you, or 5 people that you think would be interesting. Oh, sorry, I almost did a bad thing. In here, for you, the teachers, we have this STEM career highlight, and we will continue to make these. We started, and we'll keep going. So these are one page. You click on it, you can print it, you could attach it, assign it. I don't care how you do it, but there's information about the seismologist, information about what that is, what they do, and then we gave little crossword puzzles or word searches and all kinds of stuff. So it's a simple, easy thing for you to use around a different person who's doing a career. And we have some that are already out here. And like I said, we will continue to make these as we go. Our goal would be to eventually have one for everyone, or pretty close to it, but we're trying to get enough where at least teachers could use and have one a month or something along those lines. 2 a month. All right. I'm going to stop this. So what I clicked on was a video that has a whole bunch of free computer science resources for teaching coding. It's a video that's about 32 minutes long, but this is a teacher that goes through and has multiple things that you can use that are all free for teaching coding in your classroom. Okay. It has been a very successful video. There's been a lot of views of it. The teacher does a great job of explaining all the free stuff that you can use. And it's really meant for upper elementary and all of middle school. And it's done by Ryan Bean, who was a teacher that we got in contact with, and he was more than happy to make a video, but it's pretty good. All right, I'm going to go back and do the lockbox, the lessons and resources. Steve and Sarah developed all these. And if you've ever done lockbox activities for the classroom, it's a lot of time to put together and all that. They did it with stuff that is dirt cheap. I mean, you don't need hardly anything. You can even just use shoe boxes to do and put tape on them and the kids can't do it. Or, you put the little locks and stuff on there, and they even showed how to do it cheaper with different locks. So if you do lockbox, or you've done lockbox, or you want to do lockbox activities, they did a great job of developing this. They have the Word file, the PDF, the word search for whatever they're doing for each part. And there's elements in the sky, and then there's weather and climate and periodic table, and then gateway to the stars. So they have 4 of them that they developed, and they spent a lot of time putting these together. And the great thing is it's already done for you if you want to use it. And once again, free. So that's what the whole idea of this was. Okay. If you've never seen, and I'm going to guess a lot of you have, if you've never seen the data collection veneer, going back to the whole idea of buying, thank you, Kathleen. I'm glad to hear that you're going to dive into those. Veneer is there are all kinds of data collection devices out there. Pasco has them, but Veneer's been one that we've been using for quite a while here. The entire undergrad in chemistry uses these. The reason I put this on here was because, one, they have a lot of different opportunities through Veneer to get stuff for free. But you have to go on there, you have to spend a little time. They give you an opportunity to log in as a teacher to do all that. But really, the other part of this is if you use, they used to have it be a lot more expensive, but now that they have a lot of these Go Direct ones, all you need is your computer. Okay, and a lot of you guys have one-to-one. Now you're just buying some sensors and you already have it set up. And the software that they have is free. If you're using the one that they have that's a free version, you can buy the software that does more bells and whistles, but for the most part, you probably don't need to, depending on what you're trying to do in middle school. I would say once you start getting into like a high school biology, chemistry, physics, yeah, you're probably going to want that software that does a little more bells and whistles. But for middle school, pretty simple. Not only that, but if you go in under products, I got to move this around. I don't know if that's moving everybody around or what, but stop. There we go. And if you go to the lab books and you just look at what lab books are available, come on, there you go. Search in here, and there's a couple of their middle school ones. There it is, middle school science with veneer. It's $44. Now you buy it for you, the teacher, and then you use it with all the kids. And we're talking some simple things. If you had 3 temperature probes, 3 pH probes, 3, and we're not talking a tremendous amount. This is your opportunity later when I show you these grants. Write a grant. This is a great opportunity for my kids to have opportunities to collect real-time data, but I need money to be able to buy these sensors to be able to do it. I think that's a fun grant to write. I mean, that's easy to do. And you could say, I'm cutting back. I would normally buy 12, but I'm only going to buy 3, or I need 6 because I'm only going to have half my class doing it at a time. However you decide you're going to do it, but veneer would be a great purchase that would allow you to do quite a few labs on less money. That's kind of where, that's why I put veneer in there. That, and if I tell people all the time, if I ever go back to the classroom, I think if I had veneer, I think that's all I need for the most part. I think I could do the majority of the labs that I like to do with the kids with veneer sensors. I would have to have more than what I just said, but if I had a motion detector and a couple other ones, I think I could probably get the majority of them done. Okay. Sarah, I talked about lockbox. I went through that. Mm-hmm. Anything you want to say about lockbox activities?
I will say with the lockbox, that the lockbox lessons that we have, we do have, for many of them, I think the link for teachers to request the keys for that. And we really like to do that. We vet all the teacher requests that come in. So we're really protecting these resources from students getting the answers. And that way, you know that you can share these out with students. They're not just hopefully just going to find the answers out on the web, but that you can have these. But also, I think it's going to kind of give you, if this is something you're interested in, but maybe you want it for a different topic, it kind of outlines or kind of gives you a template then that you can follow to create others. So sometimes it's just nice to kind of have that template to see, okay, well, I want this, but for a different topic. And the other thing is that we have these virtual ones, but we also like doing them in person as well. And so I think you don't necessarily have to have the locked box. So it doesn't have to be something that it's fun if you have that and you have the funds. But when we talk about, designing these things on a shoestring budget, just even a cabinet that you have, or you can almost set up like a scavenger hunt, really like some clues that would lead them to a drawer, maybe that's in your classroom, or sometimes even having a student in the classroom being the gatekeeper, so that their responsibility is holding on to that and only giving when they have the right, and that kind of frees you up a little bit. And also some kids really thrive on, depending on it's middle school, right? Really thrive on that, having that power kind of, or ability to help their classmates. We've used envelopes. So again, it's just not getting stuck in that it has to be a box that locks. There are lots of possibilities, and fun containers where you could, or it doesn't even have to be a container, just drawers, cabinets, or other places within the school.
See, she did a much better job than I did. No, I did. I mentioned that you could use different things, but I love the idea of having a kid be the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
You got to come with the 3-number code, 315. And if you don't have the right one, then go away, come back when you have it. Okay. So we talked about the veneer. Now, I pulled some online resources, and I think I was very particular. There's a bazillion out there, and I spent a lot of time looking, but I wanted to give you a couple that were probably easy for you to start with. So I'm going to click on these to show you. So dollar store science, and dollar stores are everywhere. 10 easy experiments you can try right now. So on this page, you can look down through, and there's, navigate Newton's laws of force and motion. And they talk about what it is you need to get from the dollar store to be able to do this. And I looked through these and I was like, that's pretty cool. I do want to jump back to, like I said, if I was going to be gone on a certain day and I had a lab that was going to be a little more labor intensive, I might jump into one of these labs where the kids really can't break the stuff. And if they damage it, it's really nothing expensive. How about that? But I think these have some really cool, just, simple to the point, but I love it. Simple experiments with simple stuff. I mean, I'm looking there. We got a car, a meter stick, which a lot of you I'm sure have, and then they come up with a little bit of ramp, and then the paper down below is ridged, and so that whole idea of the friction coming across. So I don't need to go through this whole one with you, but I just wanted you to see that one. Flynn has a ton, by the way. And if you've never spent any time on Flynn's website, please do. I'm showing you just so I can click on any one of these and they can look at, and so I'm just going to do physical science because that's but then here's all these activities that they have that you can use, looking with some simple stuff, nothing really that expensive. And you can do all these different labs with and activities. I like a lot of these, and I looked through a good number on this middle school physical science page. I think I would have used these as those, not as a lab necessarily always, but more of an inquisitive, like, okay, why did this happen? Or why would this work this way? Or And then I want the kids to explain. I want to hear them explaining. I want them, and it may be where they do it and then they come to me and they got to explain it to me, or they have to explain it to their partner, and then their partner has to write it down. I'm thinking of all these things we do that to get kids to articulate their thoughts. But I mean, and this is cheap stuff to be able to use. So I will tell you, I spent way too much time on this Flynn page. Because it was fun just to look at, you know, what they had and why they did certain things, you know, and they have been vetted by teachers because they, you know, and they show there's your worksheet, there's what you do. It gives you the, you know, the information. I don't know. It was pretty fun and pretty straightforward. Okay. So that's the Flynn free science activities. And then the last one I gave you was Science Buddies. There are plenty of lesson plans on here, and you're going to have to, once you're in here, kind of jump around. But I did like how they had the stuff that they had, in even doing some stuff that had a little bit more, I'll say, equipment, but it wasn't too hard. I mean, as I go down through, you know, we have a whole bunch of lessons that we've developed using for coding, but they have all these little tiny robots that they can make, and they're really not very expensive. Some have a little bit more, but back to the point of, if you can do it with 3 or 4 setups versus 12, might be worth it. Okay.
Bill, can I go back to the
You bet.
Vernier?
You bet.
Okay. There is a spreadsheet that I'm going to throw in the chat. And since you're screen sharing, Bill, I don't know if you want to pull it up.
Yeah,
one thing that I'm not exactly sure where to put it on the site, but it's a link to it. I'm sure it's a Google Doc. Yeah, it's a Google sheet. But what it is, we'll see if Bill can get to that link.
I'm getting real close.
It is divided by content area. And so we see biological sciences, chemistry, physics, but then a middle physical science level as well at the very top. So we can navigate between those. But this is back to Vernier, those lab booklets that you're able to preview online, that it has every lab. And for many of these labs, Vernier has a video showing this lab being done. And so they used to have to where you could get on the file. So where you could pull the data file from that. And that was during COVID. And they've taken that resource down, but we do still have, you were able to click on.
Yep, hang on.
I think
I had it. No, I got to go. Hold on.
I think we'll go back and get it. But yeah, I think, again, just another resource.
Yes.
I think this is Vernier is just a fantastic, probably we're not getting paid to plug them, just by the way, also, we're not, you know.
Yeah.
We're used to working with them, but we're not necessarily endorsing them, but we just know that they're very supportive of teachers and have a lot of really nice resources. And Bill, I don't know if you can show at the top where you can tab between the different areas.
There's physics, there's chemistry, biological, and then there's elementary, middle school, physical.
And so again, those videos are helpful if you don't have that lab equipment. Again, shoestring, you know, using a shoestring budget, you know, what's the next best thing that we have? So kind of showing that setup. And many times they'll have some sample data along with that file that they have. So we just want to make sure and share that resource, and I'm sure we can add that.
Yeah, I'll add that underneath the Vernier thing. Thank you. That's awesome. Get out of this one. Okay. Yeah, thanks for making me go back. That was good. Okay. Once again, there are a bazillion of these also as well. You guys have probably seen some of them, but there are a ton of these simple material books. I got it down to 4 And it really, I kept looking at all the ones and I kept thinking, okay, some of these have almost too much. Some of them have too little. Some of them started to use expensive equipment, but each one of these, I'll do the first one. And these are simple books, but 47 easy to do classic science experiments. And the whole idea of this is they do it with a simple supplies. It's not meant to be high level stuff like that. But for $6, you get this, you can buy this book and you can have 47 easy to do classic science experiments. And I went down through and I looked at it. You can do the same and decide if there's those experiments or you want to use. Here's, the Smithsonian 10-minute science experiments. And if you've been around science, Steve Spangler. Once again, I looked at it quite a bit. It's pretty cool. And for $4.29, not a bad little thing to have if you need a couple extra of those. I'm not going to click on these next two. You guys can do that. But those are some simple books that you might really want to look into if you're looking for those simple, easy to purchase type activities. Okay. Now let's talk about grants. And I'm going to let can see the chat. If people pop up, I can see it for a second, but since I'm sharing my screen, I don't get it. I'd love to know, have any of you written grants before for your classroom, for materials for your classroom, for that type of thing? Okay.
A couple have not.
Yeah. That pops up on my screen for a second, then it goes away. Okay, well then I'm going to do a couple things, and I'll add to this grants because we actually have a podcast, not a podcast,
We have
a video on grant writing and stuff like that. I'll add that onto here. But here are some ones that are there are a lot out there. You kind of have to decide what it is you're looking to do and why. But here's 10 great funding resources for science teachers. And so Funds for Teachers, Make a Difference Teach, the NEA Foundation, the National Mathematics Education Trust. You can look through each one of these in based off of what you're looking for and what you want to do. You have to kind of decide which one you might try to put into. But these are 10 that a lot of these ones I've seen before. I've heard about them, and I know that they are reputable. And I can tell you this, it's kind of what I said earlier. Asking for stuff is great, but you have to have a story behind it. You got to have a way for you to sell to them that, and I love it. I've been teaching for 15, 20 years, and I'm looking to change up how I do things. And I have this idea that I want to do this and this and this, but in order to do that, I need this. So now you've told a story that is compelling to someone who's reading the grant versus, and I'm not, but you can say I'm from a low socioeconomic school and I just need this equipment. That's great. But there are a lot of people in low socioeconomic schools that are looking for equipment. So you have to have a story to tell along with it. You can tell a story and be from the richest school in the world and still get, a story told. But once again, you're going to need to spend a little time looking, and I tried to consolidate these down to these couple, but there are a lot more out there, and you might have some local ones. It's crazy. California has quite a few. And a lot of it's because the companies in California put money back towards the schools that are there. But you may want to search inside your state and see where those might fall. But here's 45 best education grants for teachers. I hate all these items. And so you just go down through. Sorry. And you saw this one on the last one, this Donor Choose. And I know a lot of teachers have heard of Donors Choose. But then after that, there's just a bunch more. Some of these are for you to have, you got to kind of look through again. Some of these are for you to travel to things to do, but a lot of these also are straight up just for you to have equipment in your classroom. Oop. Okay. Once again, I don't think I need to go through each one of these for you guys to look at the grants that are available, but feel free to search through those and look. I think you'll find something that interests you and something that helps. And if you get to the point where you just don't, and you're like, Bill, we didn't get it, email us and I'll look again. I'll search again. But I kind of wanted to start you there because I think there's plenty for you to look at. And then, honestly, after that, you also got to look locally because there are a lot of grants out there that people just don't apply for. And
community foundations are a really good place to start sometimes.
And I'm going to tell you, I wrote probably 7 to 8 grants when I was teaching, and we had 6 that were funded, and they were all the same grant. They were not, let me rephrase that. They were all the same concept. All we did was reuse that grant, typed it up a little bit different, and put it into another granting agency. Because the concept that we had, the story that we were telling was a good story. And so all we did was just keep reusing it, but then tweaking it based off of what the people were asking for their grant. So I'm telling you, when you write a grant, spend some time on the first one and also understand, I've always heard that the success rate of getting a grant is like 20%. So you got to be ready to not get funded. Yeah. But I think if you have a good story to tell, I think you got a higher percentage. Okay.
And Gina, thank you. Gina's comment that Walmart sometimes will offer other community partners. Sometimes I've seen, other places like Walmart that for their community will offer those. So that's good. It's good to check on those resources.
I wasn't going to put, and I'm not going to because I don't want this on our website. I'm going to tell you right now, asking people straight up for money in your community because you're teaching the kids in the community. I mean, we're in Lafayette, Indiana, and there is a huge, huge car dealership in our town, Bob Rorman's. I know multiple teachers who've gotten good chunks of change from him, but they walked in, talked to people, explained what they were trying to do. And I mean, the one guy got $5,000 on the spot.
Wow.
They wrote him a check. They were like, but they wrote the check to the school. So they knew the school was getting it and did that. I also know of a couple other teachers in the area that just sent emails to, we used to have, it's a different name now, Ivonic. Used to be Eli Lilly. They wrote letters to them saying, I teach science in the area. I would love to be able to purchase this. There was no grant. I'm telling you, there was no grant involved with this. They literally just sent an email. Here's what I'm trying to do. If you have anybody that would be willing to, Lilly has a deal where they have the people that work there can have money donated so they can get a tax write-off, and Lilly will match it. So if I give $100, Lilly will match $100. That's another one. I know of another company in Indianapolis that if a parent works there, they get $300 to donate to a school.
Oh, okay.
So I think also just asking parents sometimes, now you got to talk to your principal. I'm not saying that's why I didn't put this on the website. I think you got to be careful what you do, but I think we don't ask enough. And when we have a real reason why we need stuff, not just once again, oh, it'd be awesome if I had 5 laptops in my classroom for kids to use all the time. Well, okay, great. Or, I'm looking at Sarah and you guys can see her, hopefully. I mean, we have a big flat screen TV. If you're like, well, that's what I want. Okay, but why? Why do you want that? you know, and then when you tell the story behind it, then it's a lot better. Okay. Can I get to that video pretty easy? How do I,
Yeah, I will put that link.
if you put it in there?
Yep,
I'll stop and pull it up.
yeah, absolutely. I emailed it to you, but I can,
Oh, you did?
but I'm gonna put it right in the chat.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and this is on our classroom or PD for your classroom playlist. So a lot of like presentations that we might give at conferences that we go to. We had a couple of years ago, we had recorded some of those in that presentation style and then included some notes in the comments for that. And so this is one that Stephen and I had put together for just grant writing. There were some tips and at the time we had just finished writing several grants kind of in a row and we were still on a roll with those. So we said, you know, let's just go ahead and just share some of this information. So that's kind of the background behind this video right here. I think what I like about this one is it talks kind of what Bill was describing, you know, having your story, you know, your why, for why you're asking for that. When you've got that really solid plan for what it is, what your objectives of those of asking for that money is, what you expect those outcomes to be, the goals of your grant. And I think sometimes just a reminder of like, what is an objective? What isn't a goal? Are they different? And this is just kind of a nice refresher on some of those. So as you walk through, if you see a grant that you want to try, that you kind of go into that having that vocabulary like, okay, this is you know, this is clearly my objective. This is the outcome that I'm expecting.
So I cannot tell you how much I would recommend that if you're going to write a grant, I would watch this video first. It's 22 minutes. It'll help you think through some things that maybe you wouldn't normally think of. And then it'll allow you to then, and I love the final checks and did you include and all these little tidbits that help you think through. And then I hope this goes without saying, have multiple people proofread it.
That's a great idea.
Is
it clear? If it's clear, if someone just off the street can read this and understand it, you know, not having been in your classroom, and if it makes sense to them, then, you know, that's a good start.
Yep. Okay. Stop. Okay, so we went, and I will add that video underneath the grants, so that'll be in there. And then I'll add the other, the veneer one underneath that. So that'll all be on that one page. So you can go back to that as many times as you want. Thoughts or comments? And I really, if you guys have, as we were talking and doing this, if you went, oh, this is a great idea, please throw that out so that we can capsulize that and other people that are in the session can benefit from your knowledge. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute is what I'm telling you. Now, this is a game now. How long can Sarah and I be quiet before? Okay, so I didn't see anybody pipe in. That's okay. Wasn't forcing you to, but I also don't want you guys to not be heard. Okay. Well, that's all I have. Sarah, anything from your end that you can?
Oh, Chris has one. Let me scan that. Oh, excellent. Wow. That's wonderful. 90% success rate. Yes. And told the story behind the science, engineering, and need. And I think that's good. When you understand, you know, why you're asking for what you're asking, how that's going to be helpful. And I think that's a huge part of it, Chris. So thank you for sharing that.
I've been at Purdue now for 20 years and we've written a lot of grants, and I will tell you the ones that we have had a lot of success with, like Chris was saying, it pulled at the heartstrings of the people reading it. And therefore they were like, wow, that's a pretty good story. And I want to fund that because it's going to help with a happier ending to the story, or it's going to allow for that story to be told in a wide range. So,
Well, and I think, I'm sure I'm saying this, and a lot of you are like, well, yeah, that's common. I know this, but seems we have some people that haven't written grants. When you're applying for that grant, it pays to look in a little bit to the organization that's funding that grant. What are their values? Is what you're asking going to match up with what it is that what their mission? And so sometimes it might mean reframing a little bit, like, I really want to ask for this because of this, but then you might also want to look in a little bit to the foundation and their background and what it is that they're supporting. You might add a little bit to that story so that it's more in line with the goals of the foundation that might be granting those monies. So.
And you said something there that we did every time, and when you said it, I forgot we did. Look at the grants that they funded already.
Oh, right.
And if you can get your hands on the whole grant, great. But if you can get on the abstract of that grant, then you kind of know what they're looking for. I'm going to just tell a quick one. I've applied for a grant just about every year from a local group, and we've never gotten it. And I'll tell you why. Because we don't meet their needs, but yet I'm to the point now where I'm going to keep applying every year, because eventually I think they're going to get sick of me. And they're just going to give me it's not a very big dollar amount. I think it's like $5,000, but I think they're finally just going to just give the guy the money so he'll stop putting his grant in.
So persistence.
Yeah. And Sue, it's doable, and grab another science teacher and do it together,
Absolutely.
right? I mean,
there's power in numbers.
Oh, heck yeah.
Especially if that impact is greater. I mean, now if you're spreading that amongst several teachers, and so you're increasing that impact, and I think that's even, it's making it more attractive. So.
And depending on your school corporation, they probably have some school corporations have people that's their focus to write grants. And so you may have to ask your corporation office, like, is there someone that does this? Oh. And it may not be, that's not their main job. They might be an assistant superintendent. They might even be a principal of a school, but that's their focus, is to help write grants. Get with that person and say, hey, I want to do this. They may be just like, hey, when you get to the end, send it to me and I'll look it over. Mm-hmm. That's huge. Or somehow get a hold of Chris's email. Sorry, Chris, I threw you under the bus a little. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop recording. It doesn't mean you have to leave.